So with that, let me officially welcome everybody to 2022. Yes, round of applause. We made it. Here we are. Here we are in a time of active momentum. Welcome to the January breakfast meeting of NAIOP Southern Nevada. My name is Hayam Mizrahi, and I'm the chapter president this year. So one of the brilliant things this chapter did last year when we were bringing everybody back to live events is we made it a point to also keep the virtual offering. So in the back of our room, we have our camera crew who's broadcasting to a virtual audience this morning. So seated here is about 220 people. Watching from home or their offices is about another 125. I want to remind everybody both in the room and on Zoom, we have a wonderful panel today and we have an opportunity for Q&A. On the tables are notepads and pens, so as they talk, please write down your questions. Bring them over to this table. Dan and Jalen, can you raise your hands? Bring them to Dan and Jalen, and if you're at home on Zoom or at your office on Zoom, you can also type in your questions and we'll be fielding them here live. I want to welcome two special guests to NAIOP Southern Nevada breakfast this morning. From the city of Henderson, Mayor Deborah March. Round of applause. And City Councilwoman Rochelle Romero. One thing I'd like to do this year is start every breakfast meeting with a lesser-known fact about NAIOP Southern Nevada or use my time here on the podium to brag about the chapter and its achievements. Would that be okay with everybody? Awesome. So I have a startling stat to share this morning. In October of 2021, NAIOP Southern Nevada broke back into the top 10 of chapter sizes. In November, we achieved number 9. We are the 9th largest chapter in the country by member count. Yes. As of this morning, we are 598 members strong. Now, I say we broke back into the top 10 because in 2008, NAIOP Southern Nevada was actually the 4th largest, behind Massachusetts, Southern California, and Minnesota. So to me, the fact that in 2021, we broke back into the top 10 and are currently number 9, it speaks to two things. First and foremost, it's the strength and connectedness of our community and our industry. The people that do business in Southern Nevada have created a culture of buy-in and collaboration. The second thing that this speaks to in hitting this mark is that each of us as business owners and business people and professionals in this community, we vote with our dollars and our time. So we choose to continue to sponsor NAIOP Southern Nevada, and we choose to spend our time here because this chapter continues to provide value to us. So 598 current members, 9th largest chapter. Ed, I know you want to know who's 1 through 8, so I'm going to tell you. Massachusetts, Greater Toronto, Southern California, Washington, Arizona, Northern Virginia, New Jersey, and the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm not a demographer, but these are regions more than they are cities, and the populations, I did do some Googling last night, of these regions range from 3 million to 12 million. We're just over 2, and we're the 9th largest. So that's pretty awesome. That leads us into our segue of President Circle sponsorships. We want to thank our sponsors who, without them, frankly, NAIOP can't do what it does. So for 18 years in a row, please give a round of applause to our platinum sponsor, Cox Communication. We want to thank our gold sponsors, Majestic Realty, Nevada General Construction. Yes, keep it going. Rolling round of applause. Panettone Development Company, Prologis, Southern Nevada Water Authority, and the Howard Hughes Corporation. And please join me in recognizing our silver, bronze, and copper level sponsors. You can see all of them here on the screen. If you or your company is interested in a President Circle sponsorship or still need to recommit for your 2022, please stop by the registration desk, talk to Katrina or Jana, or Dave Strickland or Rod Martin. So let me ask the committee chairs to start coming up to the microphone. NAIOP doesn't happen by accident, as we all know. It runs because of great committees made up of wonderful volunteers. So we're going to take a few moments and hear from our committee chairs on what's happening with our wonderful committees, starting with Sam.
Hello, I'm Sam Flaherty. I'm with Encore Landscape Management, and I'm the chair of the DLI committee. So we are bringing back the DLI class. We start in September of this year after a year off. We're super excited about it. So if you're interested in DLI, the program, it's for 35 and under. Come find me or Jana and just put your name on the general list so we can get you more information. Applications will start late spring-ish. So be on the lookout for more information. And sponsorships are also open. So if you would like to sponsor one of the classes or the program in general, come find me.
Sam, don't go away yet. Give us a 30-second overview. What is DLI, Developing Leaders Institute?
The Institute class program is a year-long program. There's a class every month, and future leaders, the top leaders of our industry come and teach classes every month and give us a general overlook of all the different aspects of the commercial real estate industry. So development, construction, brokerage, site planning, just every aspect of a development project. And you learn so much fun, and you make lifelong connections.
Thank you, Sam.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Turchin with CODA, and I'm the chair of the Education Committee. We have our first members-only education workshop next Friday, the 28th. It's on Zoom, and it's going to be all about infrastructure. So our speakers are going to be Carrie and John, our lobbyists, as well as John Restrepo and Chris Sanchez from the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So we hope to see you on the Zoom next Friday at 8. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Guy Gugino with Union Bank. I'm here for the golf committee. We are doing a spring tournament this year. It is Monday. Yes, it is Monday, May 16th, again at Spanish Trails Golf. We are going to be reaching out to you very quickly because we do have a compressed time this year for sponsorships. You'll be hearing from all of us in the next couple weeks. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Sabrina Borgoff. I'm here representing the Spotlight Committee. Oh, come on. All right. So Spotlight is back, baby. Our 25th annual Spotlight Awards is being held at the Red Rock Resort and Casino on April 2nd. So anybody who's anybody is going to be there. So if you haven't sponsored a table, submitted your registration forms for seats at the event, you're missing out. And they're going fast, so you might want to do that today, like right now. Okay. So alongside the Spotlight Committee, the project awards and industry award submissions are due this Friday. Who's finished theirs? Wow. Jana, Katrina, we got some work to do. So again, your submissions are due this Friday, the 21st by 5 p.m. All right. Thank you, guys. Hope to see everybody there.
I should have announced or had Sabrina announce mine too, because I'm much more boring than her. Or I should have sung like Chris did that one time. Wanted to let you guys know, first of all, please pull your phones out. I'm going to have a task for you in about 2 seconds. Our first members-only mixer of the year is at Stoney's Rockin' Country. That's Thursday, February 17th. So get your plaid shirts, your boots, your cowboy hats, 5 to 7 p.m. That will include a drink ticket, appetizers, and we have free line dance lessons. So you can embarrass yourself like I have in the past. The reason for the phone, save the date. Members only mixer, Aviators mixer is going to be Thursday, April 28th. So put that on your calendar. That's a great one every year. You don't want to miss it. Also, we're offering for sponsorships of our mixers this year, $500 sponsorships. It gives an opportunity for some smaller companies. If you don't do the larger sponsorships, President Circle sponsorships, you can always sponsor one of our mixers for $500 this year. That's multiple opportunities available to multiple companies. Benefits include your logo on event marketing, email blasts, and then signage at the event. Reach out to myself or Jana if you've got any questions about that or any interest in sponsoring an event. Thank you. Turn it back over to Chaim.
Thank you, Matt. Each month, we like to recognize our new members. If you are a new member of NAIOP, please stand up. We have names on the screen here as well. So officially, everybody, that's a new member. Welcome. So those are the new members. To the rest of the members, please raise your hand. If you're already a member, please raise your hand. Let me see them. Very nice. In the NAIOP newsletter, in the president's message, I shared how my NAIOP Southern Nevada story started right here at a breakfast. My involvement in the chapter started with an invitation to join. I'm still here 14 years later because of the opportunity to serve, meaningful work through committees that I've been able to participate in, social events, relevant education, as you heard from Jen, with what we're putting on, and timely programs like we have today. Members, I'm going to ask you again to please raise your hand. Each of us here with our hands raised are here for a variety of reasons. I mentioned there's nearly 600 of us who choose to be NAIOP members. I mentioned we're number 9 in the nation of NAIOP chapters. So to the guests who are here today who are not yet NAIOP members, please receive this as an invitation from me for you to join. If you'd like to join NAIOP, you have 4 options. Number 1, stop back at the registration table on your way out, or if you'd like to quietly stand up and walk over right now, you have my permission to do that too. There's a NAIOP membership application there that you can grab. You can also go online to naiopsouthernnevada.org, click on membership, and follow the instructions from there. If you're old school, you can also call the NAIOP office. That number is 702-798-7194. If you need it again, let me know later. I'll give it to you. And Matt Hoyt, can you please just stand up one more time? Matt Hoyt is our chair of membership for how many years, sir? Too many. Not too many from our side of the equation, so thank you for that. You can always speak to Matt Hoyt about membership as well. So thank you for that. So NAIOP Southern Nevada puts on 10 breakfasts like this. We have sponsorships for every breakfast. We'd like to acknowledge all of our 2022 breakfast sponsors who have already committed from now until the end of the year. Round of applause for our breakfast sponsors. And let me call up Jay Heller, who is this morning's breakfast sponsor. I'm going to talk about Jay briefly as he's walking here. So Jay has been a valuable support of the chapter since 2013. Jay is the principal of Heller Companies. He's worn several hats for NAIOP Southern Nevada over the years. Come on up. Including Government Affairs Committee, Community Service Committee, and is also a past president. Jay, the mic's yours.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Chaim, Mr. President. That's a title I'm sure you're going to be happy to hear soon. Appreciate it. Thank you, NAIOP, for the opportunity to share a bit about our company and what we have planned. We are a Las Vegas-based development firm specializing in light industrial, multi-tenant, flex space. Let's say that fast. That's a mouthful. We are vertically integrated, so we do the, I like to say it's the one-stop shop for streamlining the process. So the development, management, leasing, TIs. We typically cater to the smaller tenant, but we have a wide range, a whole gamut of spaces from small business, mom and pops, up to larger spaces, national, international companies. As for what we have in the pipeline and planned, we have, we have a Dean Martin Business Center. It's a new development we're doing with our longtime development partners, Terry York and the York family. Dean Martin Business Center is a 200,000 square foot facility, light industrial, multi-tenant, flex space. And it's divisible down to 1,800 square feet It's located at 6800 Dean Martin Drive, so just south of the Silverton Hotel. Sorry, Mayor March and Councilman Romero, I apologize. It's in the county. But we'll work on the city of Henderson. There's lots of frontage. It has 1,300 feet of frontage on Dean Martin and direct freeway frontage on the I-15. We plan to break ground in April and have occupancy early next year. Also would like to highlight a space that we have available that is, you can go to the next one, John. It is at our Decatur Business Center. It is a unique space, second generation, formerly a gaming manufacturing company. It's 33,000 square feet. It's 2 floors, but can be divided. First floor is 17,000 square feet. Second floor plate's about 16,000 square feet. So if you'd like additional information on either available space or our new project, go to our website. Reed has something to say about it too. Oh, no. Call, or you can call us. You can reach out to Teresa Vanuya, who heads up our leasing, who's here. And you can reach out to myself as well. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you, and stay well.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Heller Companies, for sponsoring today's breakfast. You guys ready to start the program? Yes. So let me ask John, Rod, Jeff, and Reed, come on up as I introduce everybody. And as I do that, one more reminder, there is an opportunity for Q&A with these 4 fine gentlemen. Notepads and pens on the table for those in the room. Everybody who's virtual, go ahead and submit your questions through the Q&A. So Reed Gottesman serves as Vice President and Regional Manager for Schnitzer Properties. Senior Vice President. Excuse me, sir. He oversees a rapidly expanding 11 million square foot flex industrial and commercial real estate portfolio. Schnitzer Properties is firmly entrenched in our community where they lease space to 2,000 businesses. Over the next few years, Reed is excited to continue to expand the Schnitzer Properties footprint in Southern Nevada by building out their existing land holdings and seeking strategic acquisition opportunities. Sounds very complicated. A quick tidbit on Reed. In addition to all this wonderful stuff that he does, him and his wife, Tanya, are both dedicated parents to 3 girls who they shepherd around town to all their activities. He's a free Uber driver if anybody needs one. I don't know how you do it with 2 parents and 3 daughters, but kudos to you, sir. Jeff LaPour is founder and president of LaPour Commercial Real Estate and Hospitality Development Firm. Active in the western United States, over the past 20 years, he's led development ventures as a principal on over 5 million square feet of office, industrial, and hospitality, a very versatile developer here. The firm has a specific focus and successful history on complicated transactions. Jeff served on the board of directors for NAIOP Southern Nevada for many years. He's also a member of Urban Land Institute and SIOR. You can give him a round of applause. And for Reed.
Versatile.
Jeff is also a father of 2 young kids, so I don't know how you keep up with all this and the sleepless nights. Actually, I do know. I know your trick. I do know. Rod Martin joined Majestic Realty Co. Company in 1992 and currently serves as Senior Vice President, also senior, and Director of Development for the company in Las Vegas. As a Senior Development Partner, he's responsible for the development, leasing, and asset management of Majestic Holdings in Southern Nevada, totaling over 6 million square feet of industrial and office projects. Rod received a Bachelor of Science in Management from W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University. Round of applause for Rod. Rod, you're officially an empty nester?
I am.
Or almost. You are. Look at that smile on his face.
Life is simple again.
Yeah. I'll start with it. John is also an empty nester. Recently moved up to Reno from Southern Nevada, not just to enjoy his empty nesthood, but to get totally away from the kids. But John is the partner in Nevada for Dermody Properties and responsible for the company's existing Nevada portfolio, as well as new industrial spec and build-to-suit projects and acquisitions throughout the state. A 30-year real estate vet. John has also served as Senior Real Estate Manager with Mutual Benefit Life Assurance Corporation, Senior Acquisitions Associate for Prudential Real Estate Investors, and Senior Vice President and Regional Manager for Harsh Investment Properties, now Schnitzer Properties. He is Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Henderson Chamber of Commerce and past President of its Henderson Development Association. Welcome, gentlemen. Round of applause. Let's get into it. And we'll ask the audience from time to time if you can hear us, because these lavaliers sometimes, if they're misplaced, it doesn't really carry the sound. So give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if we need adjustments, all right? Denise, I see you shaking your head. You are our go-to. So let's start with a question that everyone gets asked and everybody asks this time of year, New Year. How's business? So before you answer that, little context. Each of you are developers. Your core business is development. It makes sense that the four of you are up here to kick off the Developer Roundtable for NAIOP, because NAIOP is the Association for Commercial Real Estate Development. You are all principal members. Your principal industry is development. So from that lens, tell us, how is business? And share what's great, and share maybe some thoughts around some observations, things that might not be healthy. John, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unprecedented. I think that's for us. I think seeing something that has evolved over the last 3 to 5 years, being the industrial industry here, continue at the pace it's been going through ups and downs, and seeing going forward the next 2 to 3 years almost a similar path. Again, I'd say unprecedented. Fundamentals are extremely strong. For the most part. I mean, when have we seen 10 million square feet under construction? When have we seen 10 million square feet absorbed? Vacancy at 1.5%. The fundamentals are strong, and we see it continuing, but there's definitely some headwinds. But we're kind of profiting from what we've been through and planning cautiously going forward.
Rod, what would you say? How's business, sir?
Business is difficult. Yeah, I entirely agree with everything that John said as far as what we've seen over the course of the last year, where I see us heading for the next 12 months and beyond. But it is difficult. And I think all of us, particularly in the industrial realm, recognize that it's been unprecedented, the growth that we've seen in product and pricing and rates and yields and all the rest of that. But by no means is it a walk in the park. I know I'm working harder during these times than I ever had before. It's much harder to get a project going than it's ever been before. I think it takes, regardless of all of our professions here, it just takes hard work. There's, nothing has changed despite the record numbers that we see. It's still a very difficult industry. So, to me, hopefully everybody's up for the challenge, and we'll continue to move forward on this. But it's going to take a lot of work, and as I'm sure we'll get into some of those concerns and headwinds that we're experiencing and fearful of.
Oh, we're going to get into it, all right. So John and Rod, you're primarily industrial. Jeff, you're also, I would say, primarily industrial with some other sprinklings of the other product types. So from your lens, how's business?
I think I agree with Rod. I think it's tricky, but the competition is at unprecedented levels today. Every single group that has real estate capital wants to be an industrial. It's created huge shortages of materials. Land prices are escalating. I mean, from our point of view, it's the best I've ever seen it in my lifetime. From development, exit, financing, liquidity, profit margins. But we're also riding a really strong wave. And to John's point, there's 15, 20, 25 million square feet coming in some certain markets. We've never seen that before. It's all riding a lot on e-commerce, I think, is mainly what you're seeing from a really large tenant standpoint. But there's also pockets of the industrial market that I think are pretty underserved. Like Jay Heller talked about his project earlier today. there's not a lot of the bread and butter product being built. It's not as popular with capital. Reed has kind of the market cornered on it. So everything that I'm seeing from an industrial standpoint is mostly all the same product. It's all bigger buildings, 200,000 square feet and up, $1.5 million maybe on the high side, but lots and lots of competition. More people than deals, more cash than deals.
In a bit, we'll get more into office and what you're seeing there.
Yeah.
But before we do, Sir Gottesman, how's business?
Business is good. From an operational perspective, things couldn't be better. The portfolio is full, and our competitors' portfolios are full, and there's more prospects looking for space than there's space available. So we're getting to the point where it's almost a name-your-own-price from the landlord's perspective. So that's good and bad because there are concerns moving forward with the unhealthy side is there's so much product, there's so many people looking for this product, and in 2022, we're not going to have the deliveries. Most of the product that's going to be delivered is spoken for or pre-leased. So we're going to have folks looking for space in Las Vegas. What happens if they can't find it? Are they going to move to Phoenix? Are they going to move to Tucson? And then when this logjam kind of loosens up in 2023, a lot of our product will be delivered then. Is there still going to be the business, that wave coming? When is that going to end? So there is a little bit concern moving forward, but right now, certainly for 2022, it's the good times. But it is a little bit of a concern moving forward. Just things are almost too good right now.
So we wanted to start that way, just ask how's business, get sort of an umbrella put over this thing. When we kicked off January 2021, we were still very much virtual. The programs committee had the idea of putting together a developer roundtable. We recorded them by Zoom, and then we had the benefit of editing it down to the 45-minute window that we have here. The magic of that was that you all were talking to each other. And we want you to talk to each other for the rest of this breakfast. I'm just going to sit here and facilitate, maybe ask a deeper question or a clarifying question, or just move us to the next topic. But another great thing about NAIOP is you have all known each other for years, decades in some cases, and you're colleagues, and you're willing to share in openness for the greater good. So that's a lot of what's happening, both good and some bad. Let's go a little deeper in some of this thoughts of what is unhealthy about what you're seeing. Reed, kick us off because you were starting that path around supply and demand issues.
Right. Yeah. So where I was going with that is there's a very robust pipeline, but developers like us, there's been a lot of delays on the front end of these projects for a number of different reasons. And then the construction timeline is taking longer. So we thought we'd have a lot to deliver in 2022, but the fact of the matter is, though we have a pretty big pipeline, we're only delivering one project in this calendar year. We're super confident in that project. Moving forward, my crystal ball is not as clear as we get a year down the road. So I'm just concerned that so many companies are looking in Las Vegas right now, and things are so good, but if they can't find space, are they going to move on to the next? And what happens then? And we could get into pricing and all that, but I just think as the timeline stretches out, the risk.
Are you starting to see some of those prospects going elsewhere because of the frustration?
So in our portfolio.
Sorry, John's question was to Reed. Are you seeing prospects going to other markets?
Certainly not yet, but I think John and Rod are probably going to be better at answering that question because they have the larger spaces. We have not really specialized in the big box, so we're more regional companies. We do have companies coming in from out of state, so we're not seeing that yet, but it is a concern.
For us, we are. We are starting to see that already, and it might give the opportunities for some of these smaller businesses. I think what Jeff touched on, but the concern is that they're not finding those alternatives easily elsewhere. I'm seeing them in Reno. I'm hearing about them down in Arizona, in our California markets. We've got a great database that we're working with, and the tea leaves are saying, yeah, these companies want to be in a location. Now they're very flexible. It's not just northern or southern Nevada, it's where can I go regionally? And the concern is how long is that? Now, I think we're pushing these users out. I'm in some cases 16, 18 months out, 24 months. Because if I have to put infrastructure in, we're hearing even longer than that. Now, where's the best alternative? But that's going to lease up just as quick.
Best alternatives where there's available product.
Or they put things on hold.
Yeah,
And we're starting to see a little bit of that on the manufacturing side. Costs are getting very high for them. So on that manufacturing end of it, these large users are saying, I can't have 150% cost increase when I'm putting $100 million of infrastructure or cost or equipment in. I'm going to put things on hold right now. And we're starting to see that on the manufacturing side. So certainly e-commerce.
The companies are putting things on hold?
Some of these companies are starting to put some things on hold on the manufacturing side because the costs are escalating so high.
When you say the costs, are you talking for new build-to-suits? They're putting those plans on hold because of the costs involved?
For their improvements,
And
we'll deliver-
Specialty type.
They're just going to wait for the
Specialty
market to
improvements.
adjust,
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah.
Maybe a long wait.
We're
Could
seeing
be a
some
long
hold
wait,
patterns.
yeah.
The other thing too is that what we're seeing with these larger users that we see a pipeline of these deals. On one project, it all depends on timing, but I'll have 15 users. I'll get 15 RFPs.
What size are you talking about in
Anywhere from 80 to 350,000 square feet. And there's a fair amount of looky-loos. I mean, can they make a decision? Some of them are 2 years ahead right now because they're being managed to think that way. You got to plan now, but when they're ready, you're ready to make a decision, they back out. So, that 15 really maybe is 25 or 30% when you come down to it. So there's some noise out there about all this demand, and there is, but the reality is it's a lot of the same groups. They're trying to find a place, and who can make the decision? And it's both sides. Can the user make the decision, and can the landlord make the decision 24 months in advance? Do we want to make that decision?
We're seeing something we haven't seen before. So we generally will build, call it a 200,000 square foot building, but we'll chop it up into 20s, 40s, 60s, whatever. Now, 18, 20 months in advance, we have users coming in looking to, essentially sign a lease now. And that's not really been our business plan. That's not what we do.
How does that help you?
Yeah.
Right. And, yeah,
Why would you?
exactly. Why would we? That's the question.
Kind of clarify what you guys are talking about. Go a little deeper. You're talking about pros and cons to a
Sign-
policy at Schnitzer Properties to pre-lease versus not pre-lease?
Pre-lease a whole building rather than do what we do, which is spec 8 units in that building. Get 8 tenants, spread out our risk. We usually get higher rates for these smaller tenants. Our business plan is generic spaces that we really don't change over the years. Or do we take the whole building, get a credit company, do something that, John's company would do or some of the others, and just make it a very specific building, longer-term lease, and then 10 years from now when that company moves out, we've got a giant construction project on our hands to kind of retrofit the building back to what we really do. Does that help?
I have an answer as to why would you. When you've got your own money into projects and you've got an opportunity to get an acceptable return, you're going to take it. You're always fearful of the future. Those of us that have been around long enough to see the highs and the lows, you're going to look at that deal that's on the table and say, is this a good deal for me? And if the answer is yes, you're going to take it and not say, yeah, I'll run the risk. I think in a year's time, with the continuing appreciation of rates, I'm going to be better off in a year's time.
But there's future risk on that because we have a huge bill to pay down the road and obviously there's ways to structure a lease deal, but down the road, there's going to be a bill to pay on that building.
Jeff, you're shaking your head no.
No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, renewals do happen, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean-
it's just a potential risk.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
think for you, Reed,
Absolutely.
it goes back to the product type that you're building. You build a 200,000 square foot building, you're designing that to be, broken down to, 14, 16,000 square foot units. It's a different thought process. Do
Right.
I want to have a single tenant? Because you also know when that first lease rolls, that's still your building in 5 years or 10 years. That's just because of what the business model of Schnitzer Properties are. And do you want to run that risk in 5 years, 10 years, whenever you get that building back, of having to find another 200,000 square foot user when your bread and butter is those, mid-sized users?
The scary part, so you're locking in something now if you do that deal. The scary part is the amount of time it's taking to get these development deals done.
That's the thing is, here's an example. I mean, we're going to sign a lease at our I-15 South project. It's going to be delivered in October, our first two buildings, a 330 and a 265. So we're signing that lease tomorrow, 265,000 square feet. It's 90 days old as far as negotiating, and we left some money on the table. The rates are moving quickly.
Right.
But now I can move on to the next phase, and we're pulling the trigger. So we need to monetize our holdings. Different landlords can be patient.
And in different markets where there's maybe more land available, we would be more open to doing that because we know that we could then buy more land.
Yeah.
Here, it's a tougher proposition right now.
Yeah.
As long as you know how much the building's going to cost,
When do you know that?
right?
Yeah.
Good segue. Let's go into that. In the pre-call for this, it was fascinating conversation around the current state of pricing projects, construction costs. Maybe you guys can start with how things used to be when you approached a project and got your GC and they gave you a bid and you locked in pricing and started versus how are things now? And it's related to, you're also looking at longer time horizons, which Reed, I think you talked about. So riff on that.
Price plus in today's market.
What does that mean? What does price plus mean?
There's no guaranteed prices anymore. No one can lock in, unless you locked into, at least for us, and I think it depends on certain markets, but other than roof joists, certain product right now, I can't lock into pricing. No one's going to commit 14, 16 months out. So that turns into, with no guaranteed price, it's whatever that cost is plus whatever profit they're looking at, which is a risk. So you want to de-risk your deals as best you can. So that's the challenge. That's the different environment even 6 months ago. And it's a concern, which deals, which developments are really going to happen 2 years from now. So
See, it seems like what we hear and see are roofing is the big issue. So like when you get a zoning case finished, you have to get your structural drawings done and then order your structural steel if you want to have something in the next 12 to 14, 16, 18, whatever the guy's quoting that particular minute of that particular day, right? So it's a big lead time issue, and it's sort of like for us, we're always an early mover, and it takes away the time advantage because now everybody's equal. Like, even if you beat someone to a new emerging market or whatever, you're still going to be handcuffed to that schedule. So that levels the playing field for just about everybody. Like, I don't know, is there going to be new buildings? I didn't look at the inventory here. Are there new deliveries in 22? Is there any significant deliveries that will be completed in 22?
Most of it is
23?
pre-leased, and then it moves to 23.
Yeah.
So available space in 2022 is very limited.
Yeah.
It's really-
And you're in January.
Right.
Yeah, but that really speaks to, the present, imbalance between supply and demand. When you look valley-wide here, we're, sub 3% vacancy. That's not healthy. That's not even healthy for developers that have existing portfolios. I know that you guys would, in the same boat as I am, you've got existing tenants that need more space and you can't accommodate them. That's the worst position for you as a developer because, you're representing that, you're going to handle, your clients' or your customers' real estate needs. Now all of a sudden you can't. That's what is really unhealthy, and it's going to get worse. The reality is now all of us that have portfolios, when a space comes up, you put it on the marketplace, and you've got 5, 10 or more prospects looking at the space, and what is happening is the one that gets the space is the one that comes in over asking, and because maybe they've grown frustrated through losing out on one or two other properties, they're taken at a much higher rate that I don't know if that's sustainable because you're seeing that that's what the rates are because they're forced into paying those higher prices. And then when you're looking at your next project, you're saying, so is that really where the market rates are? And that's the risk that we're running.
What I haven't seen yet, though, is that friction point. We're pushing, and I haven't seen the friction point on rents.
No,
So
but that's
we're
frightening.
not there yet.
I mean, that's 2007.
Well, let's not say
But
that.
don't you think too, Rod, that like,
Don't say it.
don't you think too, though, that like now that e-commerce has sort of made its imprint on industrial, that warehousing is not considered the loss leader that it used to be? Like everybody was like, how cheap can I get this warehouse, right? It's going to be a cost, it's an expense. Now it's more of a revenue builder, right? So it's looked at, I think, differently from the tenant and the company standpoint, where they realize they're generating revenue out of these spaces as opposed to just writing a check to keep product out of the weather, right? So I think there's a mentality shift, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, there's, so many things that go into it, including the, supply chain, challenges that have, and people recognizing they need to keep, more product online. And, the warehouse demand continues to grow, and
And that's where the employees are going too. I mean, that's.
when you can find it.
When you can find them, yeah. But those employees coming here, that's where they're working. So it's a shift. We saw that years ago. Is it, in certain aspects, you're seeing, 35, 50,000 square feet, 60,000 square feet in these industrial buildings that are office. It's office space. So it's definitely a trend that's going to continue. It's definitely a market for Las Vegas. I think I said that 2 or 3 years ago. We're not seeing a lot of office buildings, but you'll touch on that. But it's being accommodated in certain respects from that labor pool that's going there to a certain extent.
You know what I think, going back to your question, Chaim, on are we losing out to other markets? From where I sit, I think Las Vegas has moved up the list, and we're seeing more companies who would prefer to be in Las Vegas. It used to kind of be an afterthought, let's go ahead and include Las Vegas in the list. Las Vegas really has, moved up on the list, and I think in many cases, companies would prefer to be here if there were product as opposed to some of the competing markets.
And touching on that, I think we chimed in. Again, if you looked at a year or two ago, that California wave, I'm seeing a lot more companies that are non-California that want to have the presence in Nevada, north and south.
Where are they coming from?
All around the country. They want a West Coast location, and Nevada's on the list, high on the list. We're still seeing the California migration, but it's not as prevalent, at least what I've seen. But Nevada's certainly in the mix. They're at the table.
Yeah, when they're looking particularly for a Western regional
And
hub.
that says a lot about, again, I think the quality, the amenities of Nevada here, that finally, I think the efforts of the state, the diversification, the sports, everything, has really, I think, put it in the forefront that that's important to people.
Well, and you've also, for the first time, really had the inventory to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because there hasn't really been, except for this last cycle, a huge inventory
A big box.
of big box. Now, I mean, you got to have it to lease it, right?
Well, again, we got West Henderson in the house, Henderson, and obviously North Las Vegas. I saw that, and again, compliments on putting that infrastructure in. Could say it's a little bit, it was a little bit later, but again, stepped up in accommodating that. I think the timing was good, 4 or 5 years ago of planning ahead, and there's still a lot more planning to do. But, the Speedway area, capitalizing on 1,300 acres there, monetizing that, West Henderson, the fourth site there. So I think it all worked together there. You're right, Jeff. I think that was critical to get that infrastructure in.
I want to get some specific contrasts of Southern Nevada to other markets. Before we go there, though, you mentioned Speedway. We're talking about costs and how they've changed. Reed, you built a building in the Speedway, and then you built an identical building a period later. Tell us that story and what you've learned, building one building and then another one later, and what costs and timelines change.
So it's an interesting case study because it's two buildings right next door to each other that are exactly the same building, basically exactly the same land. It's the timing difference, and you could really see the acceleration on the cost to develop these buildings. We got final pricing on phase 1 in May of 2020. This building's been built, fully leased, a resounding success. Phase 2 has taken longer because of some of the stuff we touched on earlier. This building's not built yet, but we got final pricing just in December of 21, so it's very fresh pricing. The difference in hard cost construction is close to 60% higher. So you're talking about 6 quarters, 60% difference. You're talking about millions of dollars difference in developing the same exact building in the same exact place. The good news is the market's cooperated with us and rents keep going up. The bad news is the time it takes to get this done, because the longer it goes, the more risk you have as you're developing into the unknown. So I think that's a really, really good case study, pretty unique in just the exact nature of these buildings. One other item, there's another development project that the timeline, this one's in the Southwest, between pre-construction and then getting this done. The timeline from closing on the land till when we hope at this point, and I know hope's not a strategy, but when we hope we get this building done, so that's if everything goes very well from now on, you're talking about 28 months, where in the past you were talking about 18 months. So now we're hoping for 28 months. So we don't know what we're building into.
And that's why companies are being conditioned to think in longer terms as well for delivery and occupancy. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to tell us, you're in Colorado, you're in Phoenix, you're here. Before I do, I just want to remind everybody, virtually, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A. Here in the room, if you've got questions, please write them down and give them to Jalen and Dan. Dan's walking around collecting questions. We're going to start Q&A in about 10 minutes, and then we'll conclude here at 9:15, just so everyone can kind of keep time. Jeff, how does Southern Nevada compare to other markets?
It depends on many, many factors. Nevada is a super desirable place. I think it's still one of the few places that holds the tax advantage that a lot of companies are seeking, especially California-based companies. But there's also an energy and a lifestyle and a proximity to things here that make it attractive. So, if we had a lot more available land, we'd be a much larger municipality. We'd be much larger. But we're really constrained. So it's still a really small market. I think the base here today is maybe 150, 140, something like that. Denver and Phoenix are 350. So they're significantly larger markets. But the one thing about Las Vegas is it's always
Sorry,
been
the base of inventory
industrial
is
base.
150, 160 million square feet.
That's correct, yeah.
And in Denver, it's
350.
350.
But when you look at how active this market is, this has always been like a super high velocity absorption relative to the base. So when we were, maybe 100 million feet, we were absorbing 5-6 million feet a year. You could go to Denver in a typical year on 300 million feet and not see 5 million feet of absorption. So it's not a real high velocity market, but it's an expensive market, and the costs are even much greater to build there than they are here. The building standards are different, weather's different, there's just a number of things. Buildings are very, very expensive there, and land is expensive too, and it's boxed in as well, has a scarcity of land, but it's also like one of the top desirable places for young people to move. It has walkable downtowns, has a lot of great features to it, has good education system, and Phoenix has a bit of both. Phoenix is a high velocity market too, much bigger, and it has the ability to grow like Southern Nevada. If Southern Nevada had the same capacity, I think Southern Nevada would be a bigger region. But it's an easy place to do business. It's highly desirable by a lot of companies. There's tons of housing options and just about any rung on the ladder for any type of employment growth. And it's a big draw, has sports teams, has lifestyle. So each one of them has, its own advantage. Las Vegas being much smaller than the other two.
Jeff, what's the population of Denver, metro?
So Denver's like 3.5-ish, if you add everything together. But there's a lot of outlier regions too that connect to it, that factor in. But it's a very choppy market too. It's a big office market, but has a lot of great sort of lifestyle features too, snow skiing, that type of thing. I call it the Southern California of the Midwest. Yeah.
I think Jeff brings up another good point about Las Vegas, and that is just how condensed Las Vegas is as compared to the Phoenix market or certainly Southern California. If you're looking for your 500,000 square foot industrial building here in Las Vegas, you're going to go up to North Las Vegas and potentially to West Henderson and expanding from there. If you're in Southern California and knowing where your labor base is and frankly where your executive's living, you're going to have to go all the way out to Inland Empire East to find that 500,000 square footer. You're in Phoenix and you're living in the central core area of Phoenix, and you're going to go all the way out to Buckeye, Goodyear, and beyond.
Hour with traffic.
Yep. Yeah, with all the congestion, and that's an advantage that Las Vegas does have is that we can build buildings, large buildings to accommodate those uses, and still relatively close proximity to where your driving distance is to the local communities. And again, a lot of those regional distribution uses that are now coming into Las Vegas are not so concerned with the local distribution. But it's the other aspect that I think that we have here in Las Vegas, remains what our core product has always been, and that's servicing the resort corridor, and still having that relatively close proximity that where those companies used to want to stay down in the airport or Southwest submarket now recognize that North Las Vegas and West Henderson aren't far away whatsoever, and they're very attractive alternatives. And when you see a lot of those traditional users that would have been in the airport Southwest submarkets going into to West Henderson.
Ron, have you seen like a bit of a reduction in requirements for the gaming users, or?
But certainly, I think all of us, were scared to death in March of
Sure.
2020 that, when there was the closure of the casinos, and so, that segment of the market really shut down for probably 6 months, and it's been very slow to recover, which is another aspect that I think is going to lead to, tightening of the already, sub 3% vacancy and increasing of the, already, escalating, rent prices. That segment of our economy is waking up again. When you look at the numbers coming from the casinos, there's still something that's amiss, and I don't know if anybody here in the audience understands. The biggest question in my mind when you look at the gaming revenues, which are now surpassing 2019, but you look at the occupancy rates of the hotel casinos, there's just something amiss there. You're down 20% in occupancy, but yet the gaming revenues are at all-time records.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
Maybe it's that less occupancy during the week because of lack of business travel and bigger gamblers on the weekend.
It would have to be bigger gamblers. I mean, just because number of people, you would think, so there's something amiss there that I really don't understand, unless it's,
that fuzzy math?
But back to the size of the market. I mean, keep in mind that a place like Dallas, our entire market is smaller than a sub-market that they have, the whole market. And when I first got in the business, there was like these sub-market lines that you're like, oh man, if you cross this line, then this becomes what the terms are, the rates are, whatever. I brought someone out from Dallas one time, and they're like, well, what's this? I said, that's the airport submarket. And they're like, what's that? I said, that's the Southwest. They're like, they're the same, right? I mean, it's all relative, but Las Vegas has always been a tight market. When I got in the business, I think the base here was 20 million feet, and I remember the second year when I was a broker, the vacancy got to 1.8. I mean, that's zero space. And back then, we didn't have the institutional quality product either.
So when we were preparing for this, we talked a lot about industrial because there's a lot of industrial development, and we shifted to office. And you started with, I'm going to ask you now to talk about office, but I'm going to frame it with two of the things that you said. I don't know if you were being cheeky or if you were being serious. You said, I'll tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't build office in Las Vegas. And you said, I'm happy to talk about the herd mentality of capital and disregard of fundamentals. So in that frame,
yeah,
Jeff,
no,
on a positive note.
I was being serious.
But for more context, so I just saw the flyover of narrative that you guys just posted yesterday.
Yeah.
So let's start with narrative. What is it? Where are you in it? And then go back to why you shouldn't do this and herd mentality.
Okay, so the Las Vegas office market has never been really nationally recognized as a traditional office market. It's small. It's really highly fragmented. There's a lot of small independent businesses that own their own buildings. But all you have to do is look at Go look at a Q4 report from any of the firms represented here. You're going to see what looks like a dismal picture, right? You're going to say, oh my gosh, how did we lose 250,000 feet of negative absorption in 2021, right? Because that's probably what it's going to say. And you're going to see a vacancy of, the vacancy is not that high. It's about 14 maybe, give or take, depends on who you believe. But what I think is missed, and I think the reason that the only people building office are people that live here, because they can understand the market and be in it. Because if you're trying to do a desktop underwriting from LA or Dallas or Chicago or wherever, you're going to just put a line right through it and say, why would I ever build office in Las Vegas? But if you flip it and say, okay, let me see a nationally recognized growing Sun Belt market that has had no new supply for 10 plus years, right? If I didn't tell you the name of the town, you'd be like, geez, I should look at a deal there, right? So there is growth, and there is sort of this new trend after COVID that says, I'm a company, I want a new building. I know I can pick from all this vacancy, I don't want that. And I'm willing to pay what it takes to get a new building in today's market. Now, how deep is that pool? I don't know. But you've seen a lot of absorption. We've leased a project that started and then stopped and stayed stopped during COVID until we got the leasing higher. I've never seen that in this market. You see, DraftKings is another big tenant that's landed. The creditworthiness, the company profile, and the number of companies that want to be here is dramatically improved over the last office building I built in 2008. And it goes back to what we're talking about with industrial. You have to have the product standing for somebody to get it, right? It would be interesting to see how many companies would like to be here but can't find suitable space. So COVID actually, I think, has helped the office market here, the new buildings. And it's made people recognize that they are willing to pay and there is demand for new product. So if you look at just the stats and you just want the general institutional underwriting, you're not going to build an office building here.
You're telling us all the reasons why we should.
Yeah. You shouldn't, because if you read and belong to listen to the reports, it's a dismal picture.
And Jeff, just to follow up, I think where Chaim was going, which I thought was very insightful that you shared with us in the pre-call, what you found on the construction financing for office product here in Las Vegas?
There isn't any. There isn't any. I mean, any building that got built was either, I don't know about the nice new building at Howard Hughes, that's maybe corporate debt, but all of us that have built on the Beltway have all had non-traditional financing because it's just not available. I mean, and I can see that any lender is going to have difficulty taking this market data and taking it through committee and building a case for why you should build an office building. Now, when these buildings get absorbed and you see some trades happen, it should pave the way for some more capital inflow.
That's that herd mentality you were talking about.
Yeah, true.
Speak on the trends on the exit and why that's meaningful.
So when you look at all the liquidity that's in the markets today, every single large capital fund wants industrial. It has driven yields down to high 2s in some cases. I don't know in Southern California. 3 is here. You're going to buy a building on these escalated rents today at a 3% cap rate, right? And there's a lot of trades, and these buildings are trading for $200 a foot in some cases. Not everybody can buy an industrial building, yet everybody needs yield. And we're seeing it in Phoenix right now. It's starting to find a new home for a higher yield. So we're going out to market right now on an office building that we built in 2016 in Phoenix. It's an infill, 120,000 square foot building. And when we underwrote and financed that building, the vacancy in that submarket was 21%. But there was a reason for it. Like, you have to peel the onion and look. And we leased it up. And we're going to market. We got 3 BOVs, and we think that we're going to sell this building for over $500 a foot. And it's probably going to trade for a high 5 or 6 cap even. So if you look at what an office building, brand new construction, excellent credit tenants, great location, your yield is almost double what you're going to get in the industrial building. Yes, the risk perception is higher, et cetera, right? But there's lots of office owners that don't mind owning office. So you're going to have to see buildings here, exit prices at $450, $500. You have to. But relatively speaking, it's still less expensive than any of the neighboring states. So there's a case, and you'll see it when these buildings trade. They'll trade. When things loosen a bit and everybody stops talking about how COVID killed the office market forever, right? Because there is no forever, right? It'll be back.
We're ready for some Q&A.
Thank you very much. Everyone can hear. Rod, let's start with you. Can you tell, it's not a very exciting subject, but could you tell why you care and why NAIOP cares about evaporative cooling? There's been a couple questions on that exciting subject.
Because you have more evaporative cooling than anybody?
So I'm not sure what the level of familiarity is with everybody here in the audience, but just in a nutshell, and I know that we've sent a couple of newsletters out addressing this. I guess let me back up. Evaporative cooling, when it comes to warehouse development, is the manner in which we keep warehouses at a not uncomfortable temperature for both product and for employees. That not uncomfortable temperature in the middle of summers here with its ambient air temperature of 115. Inside the building, you're still at a not uncomfortable 85, 90 degrees. And you have the movement of air. It's cool air that's coming in from water. Now, obviously, everybody in this room understands the drought conditions that Southern Nevada is in. And with the continuing growth, there's been concerns expressed by the Southern Nevada Water Authority and most of the local jurisdictions that we need to further constrain the use of consumptive water, that which doesn't go back into the lake. So one of the elements that the municipalities, the county, and Southern Nevada Water Authority are looking to do is to limit and potentially eliminate the evaporative cooling in warehousing. So what that means is that if you have a warehouse, your product is going to be stored at 120 degrees or hotter, as the heat rises, and your employees are going to be in very uncomfortable conditions. And what that means for developers, you're either going to say, tenant, you're going to have to put that mechanical cooling into your space at a tenant expense, which is going to be significant. Their ongoing operating costs are going to be significant. It's a very important issue because from a developer standpoint, you have to wrestle with the question, do I want to prepare my building for future mechanical cooling, which is reinforcing the roof structure and upgrading the power service at significant cost, which will all be passed on to the tenant. And the challenge that we have in Las Vegas is compared to, people will look to Southern California or Phoenix or Reno, and certainly we see studies coming out of the Northwest and so forth. The tenant base here is accustomed to evaporative cooling. If I think any of you that have businesses that are in evaporative cooling and you were to be asked, would you move into a building with no EVAPs? The answer is no way. Nobody is going to do that. So it's a really critical topic for the development community. Nobody should ever go to the extreme of saying that it's going to stymie future development, but it would be a significant hurdle for ongoing development and a significant cost increase for the overall market, which potentially could impact companies' decisions to locate in Las Vegas versus going to other markets.
I think that's a key point, Rod. It takes away Southern Nevada as, okay, here's I think we're close to a buck a square foot already on average asking rates per month for industrial.
And doing the conversion to mechanical probably takes you up to $1.15 to $1.20 a square foot to recoup your costs, and the ongoing operating cost to the tenant. I've heard as much as eightfold on your power bill.
Yeah. So it's just it's an important metric in that equation, the cost, that operating cost. And do we want to be an advantage or at a disadvantage? I think it's against us. So certainly something to really focus on very quickly.
Yeah, and Dan, certainly NAIOP, this is front and center on our government affairs. We recognize the drought conditions that Southern Nevada is in. We recognize the climate change and the direction that it's going. What our hope is in our continuing discussions with government officials and the authority is that there's there's a meeting in the middle or a compromise, recognizing again when you look at the removal of non-functional turf evaporative cooling are entirely functional. It's not something that just looks nice. It's critical for both product and for humans working in the warehouse. So we're hopeful that we'll find some middle ground, but it's a threat to continuing development.
What would middle ground be?
So the challenge is you look at, for instance, Southern California, and they're not accustomed to using evaporative cooler. And as development has continued to push out into the Inland Empire where the climatic conditions are more similar to Las Vegas, they'll just put in the high velocity fans, which do a great job of moving the air. The challenge is moving air at 120 degree temperature doesn't really solve the problem. You need some element in there to cool the air as well. In my opinion, something that we would look at is a reduction in evaporative coolers and maybe augmenting it with exhaust fans to remove the hot air and use some of the high velocity fans as well, limiting the number of evaporative coolers. Evaporative cooling for decades has been the most efficient and economical way to cool buildings. It's something that I think most of the agencies really supported. Our concern is just the draconian approach of saying that word moratorium, which frightens the heck out of you. And if there is going to be a moratorium, I would hope that it would be planned in such a way to allow for businesses and development to account for that, such as they did with the SEER ratings on the air conditioners. As of this year, you're not going to be able to put those old units in.
Yeah. So, something my wife and I always say to our kids is there's a solution for every problem, and this one's no different. And I think there should not be a knee-jerk reaction. There should be a thoughtful process that the stakeholders get together, work together, and figure out what that solution is, because it's there. So rather than the knee-jerk.
John, you mentioned rents were about $1 a square foot in industrial, just a round number. And if it went up 20 cents a foot, what would that do to the pipeline of Dermody in southern Nevada?
I think it's a bigger question. I guess if it's the cost that's pushing that, if it's land prices, you're seeing that in other markets.
No, just evaporative cooling pricing.
I think that does start to, it puts us in potentially a disadvantage with some of the other markets. Phoenix, for instance, Phoenix has to go through very similar development, procedures and from a cost standpoint. Yeah. But if we're at par with some of those other markets, it's a disadvantage. So I do expect it. It would be another check minus, as Rod said. I think if a company is coming in there and saying, absolutely you can't have it, you could have it at an X cost at your, that's going to.
Do we want to hurt the perception of this market?
Yeah. Why do it? Yeah.
Economic development.
There's a solution. There is a solution.
There's a solution here.
Yeah.
I think this could have came from Ed Vance, but they were talking about, land prices are coming up and leasing's coming up and construction costs are coming up. Are the design fees coming up also for all you developers?
He knows the answer to that.
Yes.
I would say
structural architecture
across the board,
board.
Everything is more expensive. If you go to Albertsons and buy a container of milk, it's more expensive. Everything's more expensive. But I would say that the biggest items that I've seen, it's wood and metal, but everything is more expensive.
Everything's more expensive and more difficult to get, and certainty on delivery is very difficult.
But other than that, it's perfect.
So we're getting to time, and that's actually a perfect segue to the final question that we have. It's January, it's the new year, everybody loves a good prediction. So I'm going to ask you guys to make a prediction. Dan nailed it. Costs on everything are going up. Everything is taking longer. Fortunately, rents are keeping pace. At some point, there has to be friction or resistance. So we'll start with John. We'll go down the line. What's your prediction for 2022? Is this the year we start seeing friction and resistance or not?
We're already starting to see the friction. The question is it going to be expanded, again, in uncertainty? We've got a pipeline of product that we're developing right now and can deliver in 22, so I know it's going to be a productive year for us. It's beyond the 12 months that I'm certainly concerned with. So I'm going to be busy, no question about it. But friction is it's at the table right now. It's just how we're going to deal with it, making decisions. It's going to be riskier decisions for us that are going to be made. We're going to make them, and we're going to try to hedge our bet because we're long-term players. We want the product in the market. And it may limit some of the other smaller players that have come in. We'll see, but we're prepared for it.
Rod, prediction for 2022. Is this the year for resistance and friction?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be beyond 22. I think there's an awful lot of things that we're all watching and are potential concern. We just touched upon inflation, which then goes hand in hand with Fed policy, and we're going to see increase in Fed rates. Even if you go up 100 basis points, you're still going to be under below where we were in 2019 pre-pandemic. So I think we've got a little bit more runway there, but it's coming. Inflation's hitting all of us in everything that we do, and Reed mentioned commodity pricing. Labor shortages is certainly a difficulty that's going to continue to get worse. You can't talk about anything in the world today without discussing COVID, because that's remains the big wild card. Or this Omicron variant, are we kind of past that hurdle and on to greener pastures, or is there going to be something else that completely disrupts the the worldwide economy again? That's one of the biggest wild cards, and the other normal wild cards and geopolitical action that nobody thinks about until there's a problem somewhere in the world. And there's a lot of things that we're going to worry about. People are going to look at the midterm elections. Is that going to potentially change anything? 6 months ago, we were worried about changes in tax policy. That worry hasn't come to fruition yet, but there's just a lot of things out there on the horizon, and at some point in time, something's going to cool the market. We don't know what it is, and why I believe we're good for 2022. I can't even think of what it might be, which is the frightening part. But I feel, we're pretty good for, at least for the year 2022. The challenge is with the conditions that are out there, there's not going to be a lot of product that's delivered in 2022.
Jeff?
I agree with Rod. I think there's so much absorption and momentum and so many requirements in the market for industrial specifically that it takes time for that stuff to burn off. I think there could be a bottleneck between demand and lack of supply because of the inability to deliver this space. But I think 22 is going to be another good year.
I'm looking for the friction in 2022, not seeing it. I don't think we'll see it in 2022. In 2023, I think there's risks as this product that's not pre-leased comes online.
So it was a no, a no, a no, a no, and a no. No friction for 2022 that
So
we
you
can
know, no
foresee
friction.
anyway. No resistance, but maybe it's certainly coming around the horizon. And like Jeff said, active momentum. Want to thank all of our panelists. Round of applause, please, for our panelists. A round of applause for Jay Heller and Heller Companies as the breakfast sponsor. Those that joined us virtually, please stick on and take the survey after the program. And for everybody else, mark your calendars, Thursday, February 24th, for the next NAIOP Southern Nevada breakfast program right here at the Orleans. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.